Do you remember the absolute chaos of 2020? The completely bare store shelves? People literally getting into physical altercations in grocery store aisles over toilet paper? I'm talking about full-grown adults actually shoving and wrestling each other in Walmart over a single 12-pack of Charmin. It was surreal to witness. But here's the fascinating thing that most shoppers completely missed during all that mayhem. While the majority of people were battling it out in the paper goods section, the experienced preppers, they were nowhere near that aisle at all. Instead, they were moving calmly and deliberately through the store, methodically filling their shopping carts with 12 very specific items that the average person would walk right past without a second glance. These were items that typically cost just a few dollars each, products that were sitting there on fully stocked shelves, simply because the general public had no real understanding of what they'd actually be worth when things got bad. And then when the supply chains finally broke down, when manufacturing facilities shut their doors, when those particular 12 items eventually vanished from store shelves, some of those products didn't reappear in stores for nearly 2 full years. Now here's the part that should concern everyone. 2026 is looking like it could potentially be even worse than what we experienced before. Our supply chains remain incredibly fragile and vulnerable. Inflation continues to climb steadily upward, and the knowledgeable preppers, they're already taking deliberate action right now. They're systematically stockpiling these 12 specific products at this very moment. Watch while the prices are still relatively cheap, while the items are still readily available on shelves, and while the majority of people are still completely oblivious to what's coming. In this guide, I'm going to show you exactly what those 12 items are, explain in detail why they'll become absolutely priceless when the shelves go empty again, and most importantly, tell you precisely where to find them before it's too late to act. Let's dive right into it. Item number 1, yeast. The first item on this list might genuinely surprise you. We're talking about yeast. That's right, those same little packets you walk past in the baking aisle, the ones that typically cost around 50 cents each. Now I know exactly what you're thinking right now. Yeast? Seriously? That's supposed to be your number 1 most important item? Hana, but here's the reasoning behind it. When supply chains break down completely, bread is one of the items that disappears incredibly fast from store shelves. Back in 2020, bread was literally one of the very first things to completely vanish from store shelves everywhere. People were panic buying loaves as if they were constructed from solid gold. They were treating bread like it was the most precious commodity on earth. But here's the key insight that smart preppers understood from the beginning. You don't actually need to stockpile bread itself. That doesn't make any practical sense. Bread goes stale within just a few days, mold starts growing on it quickly, and it takes up considerable storage space in your home. What you actually need instead is the ability and capability to make your own bread from scratch. And for that essential skill, you absolutely need yeast. Let me break down the economics for you. 1 single pound of instant yeast costs approximately $5 at most stores. That 1 pound of yeast can produce well over 200 loaves of bread. Let me repeat that important fact again so it really sinks in. Just $5 worth of yeast can make 200 complete loaves of bread. But here's where the value proposition gets even better and more compelling. When stored properly using the right techniques, yeast lasts significantly longer than most people would ever imagine possible. That expiration date printed on the package, that's specifically calculated for room temperature storage conditions. But if you put that same yeast in a properly sealed Mylar bag, add an oxygen absorber packet to it, and then stick it in your freezer, that yeast will remain completely viable and usable for a full 10 years, possibly longer. Some experienced preppers have reported successfully using yeast that's been continuously frozen for over 20 years, and it still works perfectly fine. And yeast isn't valuable just for making bread either. It's absolutely essential for producing alcohol as well. Now, before you get the wrong idea, I'm not talking about making moonshine so you can get drunk during the apocalypse. I'm talking about alcohol as a disinfectant for medical purposes. I'm talking about it as a valuable barter good for trading. I'm talking about it as potential fuel. Alcohol has been used as a form of currency for literally thousands of years throughout human history. And the person who possesses the knowledge and ability to produce alcohol when no one else can, and that person holds significant power and influence in their community. Here's what you should do. Purchase 2 full pounds of instant yeast. The brand that most experienced preppers consistently recommend is Saf Red. Divide your yeast into quarter-pound portions for easier storage and use. Seal each individual portion in a Mylar bag along with a 300 cubic centimeter oxygen absorber packet. Store all of them in your freezer for maximum longevity. Total cost for this prep, approximately $10. Total potential value during a real crisis, absolutely priceless. And here's one more important thing to consider. Learn the technique for making a sourdough starter from scratch. A sourdough starter is essentially yeast that you cultivate and grow yourself from the wild yeast that naturally exists in the air around you. Once you successfully get a starter going and maintain it properly, you literally never need to purchase commercial yeast again for the rest of your life. It's essentially infinite bread-making capability that renews itself continuously. Item number 2, canning lids. The second item on this list is the one that genuinely caught everyone completely off guard back in 2020. We're talking about canning lids here, and to be very specific, not the glass jars themselves, not the metal screw-on rings, just the flat metal lids that actually create the seal on the jars. In 2020, these canning lids disappeared from store shelves almost instantaneously, and they didn't reappear and come back into stock for over 2 complete years. 2 full years. Just stop and think about that for a moment and let it really sink in. Imagine this scenario. You're a prepper who has 50 pounds of dried beans stored away. You have 20 pounds of rice in your pantry. You have a productive garden that's completely full of ripe tomatoes ready to harvest, but you can't preserve any of it. You can't can any of that food because you don't have a simple $2 pack of canning lids on hand. All that potential food, all that effort, all those resources, it all just rots away, gets wasted, and is completely gone. Here's exactly why this happens with canning lids. Canning lids are designed for single use only. Once you seal a jar properly, that particular lid is finished and done. You absolutely cannot reuse it safely for proper canning. The seal won't work correctly and you risk contamination and spoilage. So every single time you can something, whether it's vegetables, fruits, jams, or anything else, you need a brand new lid for each and every jar. And here's the fundamental problem with this system. There are only a small handful of manufacturing facilities in the entire country that actually produce canning lids. When demand suddenly spikes dramatically, those few factories simply can't keep up with the orders and demand. And when they can't keep up with production demands, people start panic buying and hoarding whatever they can find. And when people start hoarding en masse, the store shelves go completely empty and they stay empty for extended periods. Here's what you should do. Buy canning lids in bulk quantities right now while they're still readily available in stores and online. A case of regular mouth lids, which contains approximately 200 individual lids, costs around $30. Now, a case of wide mouth lids runs about the same price. For $60 total, you get 400 lids. That quantity is enough to can food for your entire family for approximately 2 to 3 years of regular canning. Store your lids in a cool, dry location, away from any moisture and away from high humidity areas. The rubber sealing compound on those lids will remain effective and good for 10 to 15 years if stored under proper conditions. And here's a valuable bonus tip to consider. Look into investing in reusable canning lids. Brands like Tatler manufacture lids that can be used over and over again for many years. They're definitely more expensive initially, about $2 per individual lid, but they last essentially forever with proper care. An investment of 100 reusable lids costs $200 up front. No, but then you never have to worry about canning lids again for the rest of your life. Item number 3, oil lamp wicking. The third item on this list is something that most preppers completely and totally overlook in their preparations. We're talking about oil lamp wicking here. Not the lamp oil itself, not the actual lamp, just the wick material. Here's the situation. Most preppers have flashlights stocked away. They have batteries stored. Some even have solar chargers set up. But what happens when those batteries eventually die and you can't replace them? What happens when your solar charger breaks or malfunctions? What happens when you burn completely through every single candle in your entire stockpile? You're left with darkness. Complete, total, absolute darkness. And in a genuine long-term grid-down scenario where there's no electricity, the darkness becomes genuinely dangerous. You can't see potential threats approaching. You can't work or do anything productive after sunset. You can't read to educate yourself or your children. You basically can't do anything meaningful. This is exactly where oil lamps become invaluable. Oil lamps have been providing light for human civilization for literally thousands of years of history. They're incredibly simple in design, they're remarkably reliable, and they can run on almost anything that burns. Kerosene, lamp oil, olive oil, vegetable oil, even rendered animal fat if necessary. As long as you have some substance that burns, you have a source of light. But here's the critical detail that most people don't realize or think about. The lamp itself lasts essentially forever with minimal care. The oil, you can make it, find it, and scavenge it or render it from various sources. But the wick gradually burns down over time, it gets consumed and used up, and eventually it's completely gone. No wick means no light, period. Here's what you should do. Oil lamp wicking costs almost nothing to purchase. A 10-foot roll of half-inch flat wick costs approximately $5 at most hardware stores. That single 10-foot length of wick will provide you with roughly 5,000 hours of usable light. $5 for 5,000 hours? That's enough light for your entire family for multiple years. Purchase several rolls in different widths to fit various lamp types. Half-inch, 7/8 inch, and 1-inch widths are standard. Store them in a sealed plastic bag in a cool, dry place away from moisture. Cotton wicking that's stored properly will last basically forever. And here's an additional bonus. You can actually make your own emergency wicks in a pinch if you absolutely have to. Tightly rolled cotton fabric works reasonably well. Old cotton t-shirts can be cut into strips. Cotton rope can be used. But having proper professional wicking material on hand ready to go, that's always the smart move and the better option. Item number 4, bulk salt. The fourth item on this list has been considered valuable for literally thousands of years throughout human history. We're talking about salt. But I don't mean the little container of table salt you have in your kitchen spice cabinet. I'm talking about bulk salt, 50 to 100 pounds or more of it. Here's exactly why salt is so absolutely critical for survival. Salt is one of the only reliable methods to preserve meat without access to refrigeration. Before refrigerators were invented and became commonplace, salt was literally how humanity managed to survive through harsh winters. You kill an animal in the fall, you salt the meat properly, and that meat stays edible for months. Sometimes it can last for years. Without salt, that same meat rots and spoils within just a few days. And in a genuine long-term collapse scenario, when the electrical power is out indefinitely, when your freezer is just a big warm insulated box that doesn't work, salt becomes the critical difference between being able to eat and watching all your food rot away in front of you. Here's some important math that every single prepper should know and understand. To properly salt cure meat, you need approximately 8 pounds of salt for every 100 pounds of meat you're preserving. So if you successfully hunt a deer, which typically yields maybe 80 pounds of usable meat, you need about 6 to 7 pounds of salt just for that single deer. One deer requires 7 pounds of salt. Now think carefully about feeding your entire family for a full year in a collapse scenario. You're going to need significantly more than that little container sitting in your spice cabinet. But salt does far more than just preserve meat. Salt is absolutely essential for properly canning vegetables. Salt is used extensively in the cheese-making process. Salt is necessary for fermenting foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and pickles. Salt is critical for making oral rehydration solutions when someone has diarrhea, which is actually one of the biggest killers in survival situations worldwide. Salt is even used for cleaning and disinfecting wounds and for basic oral care when you don't have toothpaste. Here's what you should do. Buy salt in bulk quantities. Not fancy, expensive sea salt, not trendy Himalayan pink salt, just plain, simple, non-iodized canning salt, or water softener salt, or pool salt. A 50-pound bag of pool salt costs approximately $7 at most hardware stores. $7 for 50 pounds? Purchase 2 bags and you have 100 pounds of salt for just $14 total. Store your salt in food-grade 5-gallon buckets with Gamma Seal lids to keep moisture completely out. Salt that's stored in dry conditions has an infinite shelf life. It's a mineral. It literally doesn't go bad ever. Your great-great-grandchildren could use that exact same salt. Sheet item number 5, borax. The fifth item is probably sitting in your laundry room right now as we speak. We're talking about borax, the 20 mule team stuff that your grandmother probably used religiously. Most people think borax is useful just for laundry purposes, but experienced preppers know that borax might actually be one of the most versatile and useful substances you can possibly stockpile. Here's why. Borax has over 50 documented survival uses. It functions as a cleaner, a disinfectant, a pesticide, a flux for welding, a fire retardant, and a fungicide. Let me break down the most important uses in detail. Pest control. When sanitation systems break down during a crisis, Pest populations absolutely explode. Roaches, ants, fleas, they multiply rapidly. Borax kills them all effectively. Mix borax with sugar, and you have one of the most effective ant and roach killers ever created by humans. The sugar attracts them, the borax destroys their digestive system. No harsh chemicals needed, no spray cans, just borax. Laundry. When commercial detergent runs out or becomes unavailable, borax cleans clothes effectively. Add half a cup to your wash cycle, and it significantly boosts cleaning power, softens hard water, and removes stubborn odors. Mold removal. Mix 1 cup of borax with 1 gallon of water, and you have a powerful mold-killing solution. In a damp survival shelter situation, mold can make you seriously sick. Borax keeps it under control. Preserving food. Borax has been used for centuries to help preserve meat and fish. It's not recommended for heavy consumption, but in a true survival scenario where options are limited, it's another valuable tool in your arsenal. Here's what you should do. 1 4-pound box of 20 Mule Team Borax costs approximately $6. That 4 pounds will last an average family for years. Purchase 3 boxes for a total of 12 pounds, costing about $18 total. Store in a sealed container away from moisture. Borax has an infinite shelf life if kept in dry conditions. Item number 6. Silica gel packets. The 6th item is something most people throw away without even thinking about it. We're talking about silica gel packets. Those little white packets that say, "Do not eat" on them. The ones that come in shoe boxes, vitamin bottles, electronics packaging, new purses, and similar items. Most people toss them straight into the trash can without a second thought. Smart preppers? They're actively hoarding and saving them. Here's exactly why. Moisture is the silent killer of survival supplies and equipment. Ammunition that's stored in high humidity conditions. The powder gradually degrades, leading to misfires, which is extremely dangerous. Electronics stored in damp conditions. Corrosion develops, circuit boards get destroyed. Seeds stored with moisture present. Mold develops, rot sets in, and you end up with dead seeds that won't germinate when you need them. Important documents, photographs, important papers, all destroyed by moisture damage over time. Silica gel works by absorbing moisture from the surrounding air. It creates a dry microenvironment inside whatever container you seal it in. And here's the truly best part. Silica gel is completely reusable indefinitely. When the packets become saturated with moisture, you just spread them out on a baking sheet, put them in your oven at 250 degrees for approximately 2 hours, and they're good as new. You can do this over and over again. Here's what you should do. Stop throwing away the silica packets you already get with new products. Start collecting them in a sealed jar. Then buy more in bulk to supplement your collection. A 1-pound bag of silica gel packets, which contains about 50 individual packets, costs around $15 on Amazon. Use them everywhere throughout your preps. Put them in your ammo cans, your seed storage containers, your document boxes, your electronics containers, your gun safe. Anywhere moisture could potentially cause damage, silica gel provides protection. Spending $15 to protect hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of supplies? That's genuinely smart prepping. To item number 7, rat traps. The 7th item is something nobody really wants to think about or consider. We're talking about rat traps here. Not small mouse traps, full-size, heavy-duty rat traps. Here's the ugly truth about survival scenarios that people don't like to acknowledge. When sanitation systems break down, when garbage isn't being collected regularly, when food is being stored in individual homes instead of centralized warehouses, rat populations absolutely explode. And I mean genuinely explode. A single pair of breeding rats can produce up to 15,000 descendants in just 1 year. 15,000 rats from one pair. Now imagine your carefully accumulated food storage, your thoughtfully stocked pantry, all your rice, all your beans, all your grain. Rats will find it eventually. Rats will eat it. See, rats will contaminate everything with their urine and feces. And rat contamination doesn't just ruin food. It spreads serious diseases, hantavirus, leptospirosis, salmonella, rat bite fever. In a collapsed scenario without access to hospitals and proper medical care, these diseases can easily be death sentences. But here's what most people don't consider or think about. Rat traps don't just protect your valuable food storage. Rat traps can also provide food itself. I know it sounds disgusting and unappetizing, but throughout human history, Rats have been consumed as a protein source during severe famines. They're eaten in survival situations around the world to this very day. A rat trap doesn't need batteries to function. It doesn't need ammunition. It works completely silently. It works repeatedly for years. And it catches protein. Mom, here's what you should do. Buy a dozen heavy-duty snap traps. The Victor brand professional traps are approximately $3 each. That's $36 for a dozen quality traps. Store them in a sealed container so the springs don't rust over time. Learn proper placement techniques. Rats travel along walls, not out in the open. Place traps perpendicular to walls with the trigger end touching the baseboard. Use peanut butter as bait. Rats absolutely can't resist it. Check traps daily, reset them, and repeat. Pest control and emergency protein source for just $36. Item number 8, vitamins. The 8th item could literally prevent your teeth from falling out of your mouth. We're talking about vitamins, specifically vitamin C, vitamin D, and a good quality multivitamin. Well, here's what most preppers don't understand about nutrition and health. You can have 1,000 pounds of rice and beans stored away, you can have enough calories to last 5 full years, and you can still die from malnutrition because calories are not the same thing as nutrition. Your body needs vitamins and minerals to function properly. And when you don't get them in adequate amounts, bad things happen to your body. Fast. Let's talk about vitamin C specifically. Without adequate vitamin C intake, you develop scurvy. Scurvy symptoms start in about 30 days without vitamin C. First, your gums start bleeding spontaneously. Then your teeth begin to loosen in your mouth. Old wounds that had healed reopen. Your joints ache constantly. Bruises appear everywhere on your body. Without treatment, scurvy is eventually fatal. Wes, this is exactly what killed sailors for centuries before they finally figured out that citrus fruits prevented it. Now here's the problem. Most survival food, rice, beans, wheat, dried meat, has almost zero vitamin C content. Canned fruits and vegetables lose vitamin C content over time in storage. Fresh produce won't be available in a long-term collapse scenario. Vitamin C supplements are your insurance policy against scurvy. Same principle with vitamin D. If you're sheltering in place for extended periods, not getting regular sunlight exposure, vitamin D deficiency causes bone weakness, immune system problems, and depression. Here's what you should do. Buy vitamin C in bulk. A bottle of 500 tablets costs approximately $15. That's over a full year's supply for one person. Buy vitamin D3 as well. A bottle of 400 soft gels costs about $12. Buy a quality multivitamin too. A year's supply typically runs about $20 to $30. Store vitamins in a cool, dark place. When kept sealed and away from heat and light, vitamins maintain their potency for 10 to 15 years past their printed expiration date. Spending $60 on vitamins could prevent diseases that killed millions of people throughout human history. Item number 9, plastic bags. The 9th item is literally everywhere around you and costs almost nothing. We're talking about plastic bags. All sizes. Grocery bags, gallon Ziplocs, trash bags. I know it sounds too simple to be important, but plastic bags might actually be one of the most underrated survival items in existence. Here's why. Plastic bags have over 30 documented survival uses. White water collection. Line a hole with a plastic bag. Let dew or rain collect. Now you have clean drinking water. Tie a plastic bag around leafy branches. Transpiration from the leaves collects water inside the bag through condensation. Waterproofing. Line your backpack with a trash bag. Your gear stays completely dry even in pouring rain. Wrap your feet in plastic bags inside your boots. Keeps your feet dry in wet conditions. Wound care. A clean plastic bag can cover a wound, keep out dirt and debris, and keep in moisture for treating burns. Waste disposal. When toilets don't flush anymore, plastic bags lined in buckets become your entire sanitation system. Insulation. Stuff plastic bags with dry leaves or crumpled newspaper. Creates instant insulation for warmth. Food storage. Ziplocs keep food dry, keep pests out, and allow you to portion meals appropriately. Here's what you should do. Start saving every plastic bag you get from stores. Buy a box of heavy-duty trash bags, 50 bags for about $15. Buy a box of gallon Ziplocs and a box of quart Ziplocs, maybe $30 total investment. Store flat in a cool, dark place. Plastic bags last for years. $30 for hundreds of potential uses. Item number 10, rawhide lashings. The 10th item goes back to primitive survival skills that most modern people have never even heard of. We're talking about rawhide lashings. Most people have never even heard of this material or technique. But if you need to build tools, construct a shelter, or repair equipment without access to modern fasteners, rawhide is one of the strongest binding materials that exists in nature. And here's how it actually works. Rawhide is untanned animal hide, usually from cow or deer. When rawhide is wet, it's soft and flexible, making it easy to wrap around joints and connections. But when rawhide dries completely, it shrinks significantly, and as it shrinks, it tightens. The final result is a binding so tight, so permanent, that it genuinely rivals modern hardware in strength. This is precisely how indigenous peoples built durable tools for thousands of years. Axe heads bound firmly to handles, spear tips bound to shafts, shelter poles bound together, all accomplished with rawhide, and those bindings would last for years, even decades. Here's why this matters for modern preppers. In a long-term collapse scenario, you'll eventually run out of duct tape, zip ties, screws, and nails. But if you have rawhide stored away, you can build and repair almost anything indefinitely. Here's what you should do. Buy rawhide laces from leather craft stores. A pack of 50 laces costs about $10 to $15. Or buy bulk rawhide strips. A pound of rawhide strips runs about $20. Store dry in a sealed container. When you need to use it, soak in water until flexible, wrap tightly around whatever you're binding, and let it dry completely. You now have a permanent binding that requires no tools, no hardware, no electricity. Ancient skills from 10,000 years ago that still work perfectly today. Item number 11, pantyhose. The 11th item might sound strange and out of place for a survival list. We're talking about pantyhose. Yes, you read that correctly. Pantyhose. Before you laugh or dismiss this, hear me out completely. Pantyhose have over 20 documented survival uses that most people have never even considered. Blister prevention. This is actually an old military trick that's been used for decades. Wear pantyhose under your regular socks. The nylon creates a friction barrier between your skin and sock. Result, drastically fewer blisters during long hikes or bug-out situations. Water pre-filter, stretch pantyhose over a container opening. Pour dirty water through it. The tight weave catches debris, sediment, and large particles before you run water through your expensive reel filter. This significantly extends the life of your expensive water filters. Mosquito protection. Wear pantyhose on your arms and legs under your clothing. Mosquitoes absolutely cannot bite through the tight nylon weave. In a survival situation, mosquito-borne illness can be deadly. Watch seed sprouting. Place seeds in a knotted section of pantyhose. Dip in water periodically. The nylon holds moisture and allows you to sprout seeds easily for food. Food storage. Onions and garlic stored in pantyhose with knots tied between each bulb last months longer than in open-air storage. First aid. Pantyhose make excellent emergency bandage wraps, improvised tourniquets, and arm slings. Here's what you should do. Buy a 10-pack of cheap pantyhose from the dollar store. 10 pairs for maybe $5 total. Store in a sealed bag away from light. $5 for 20 survival uses you never knew existed. Item number 12, hydrogen peroxide. The 12th and final item is probably already in your medicine cabinet right now. We're talking about hydrogen peroxide, the brown bottle stuff that bubbles and foams when you pour it on a cut. But most people only use it for wound care and nothing else. Smart preppers know hydrogen peroxide does so much more than that. Disinfectant. 3% hydrogen peroxide kills bacteria, viruses, mold, and fungi on surfaces. When commercial cleaners run out, hydrogen peroxide effectively disinfects your living space. Oral care. Dilute hydrogen peroxide with equal parts water. Gargle for 30 seconds. This kills bacteria that cause sore throats, gum disease, and mouth infections. When there's no dentist available, oral care prevents serious infections. Garden pest control. Mix 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide with 1 gallon of water. Spray on plants. Kills aphids, spider mites, and fungal infections on your survival garden. Wound irrigation. The bubbling action flushes debris and bacteria out of dirty wounds. Not recommended for deep wounds, but for surface scrapes and cuts, it's highly effective. Mold removal. Spray undiluted hydrogen peroxide directly on mold. Let it sit for 10 minutes. Wipe clean. Kills mold without producing toxic fumes. Here's what you should do. Buy hydrogen peroxide in bulk quantities. A pack of 12 bottles of 3% hydrogen peroxide costs about $20. Store in a cool, dark place and keep bottles sealed. Unopened hydrogen peroxide lasts 3 or more years. Once open, it loses potency after about 6 months. So buy sealed bottles and only open when actually needed. $20 for disinfectant, wound care, oral care, garden care, and mold removal solution all in one.